When watching any given episode of any given popular ghost hunting show, one can't help but notice a certain pattern. A group of paranormal investigators introduces the audience to an allegedly haunted site: an old house, a historical mansion, a jail, a defunct asylum. They give stage to one or more eyewitness reports of spirits or similar paranormal events before spending the night at said site to investigate the haunting. However, it is specifically the way these mostly white, mostly male investigators present their research and themselves on screen that echoes days long gone by. They enter an unknown building, on the lookout, even on the hunt for ghosts, to be the first ones to communicate and discover an untouched world. It can be argued, then, that ghost hunting shows have effectively overtaken the originally female domain of spiritualism in order to restage the traditionally male-dominated discovery process of the past. In the following, we will discuss the importance of manliness in exploration and the narrative of the masculine explorer. We will then examine the act of restaging the discovery process before briefly looking into the origins of spiritualism as a female domain. Finally, we are going to see how hypermasculine paranormal investigation imposed its ideals on the realm of spiritualism. During the Age of Discovery, the most important part, besides the exploration, was the reporting on it. First-hand narratives by explorers and second-hand stories by newspapers painted vivid images for the reader who was half a world away. But not only that, they also created the image and the narrative around the heroic adventurer and explorer. As Terrell states, the first-hand narratives define their authors as heroic men of science. Hereby we already get the hint that exploration and discovery were considered an innately male thing to do. So was the scientific work it entailed. Narratives of discovery, Terrell argues, elevated the heroes of science above the rest of humanity, often in gendered terms. Expedition narratives also underline the gendered nature of scientific work, as the exploits of heroes were construed in explicitly masculine terms. Moreover, stories were mostly meant to be read by country men, telling stories of adventure and courage to aspire to. Riefenberg argues that the gendered description of adventures and exploration does make sense in a way because it does mirror the war effort. War served to differentiate between the genders because while men fought in faraway places, women waited at home, encouraging these efforts with sympathy and understanding. Though female explorers existed as well, it remained a largely male domain. As time went on, expeditions became as much about discovery as they became about proving one's toughness and manliness. Especially the polar exploration became a testing ground for one's masculinity. According to Robinson, polar exploration had come to represent a place of manly contest rather than scientific investigation. This was especially true of the quest to reach the North Pole. But with the Age of Discovery coming to a close, the world explored, and the heroic figure of the adventurer rather a work of fiction than reality. there was yet a whole new world to discover. In an interview with Blue Ridge Outdoors, ghost hunter Josh Warren explains,
There are easier ways to make a living, but this is what excites me. It makes me feel alive to be on the edge of what we know and what we don't know. It's the explorer's instinct. A lot of exploration has already been done. Not only have we been to the moon, I can look at your house from space while sitting at my computer. But this, ghosts and cryptids, this is the last great adventure.
herein Warren hints at the paranormal as a sort of last frontier for explorers. Ghosts and mythical creatures remain the last thing to yet be discovered. This kind of mindset mirrors the one from Joseph Conrad, who in 1924 complained about the decline of heroism in exploration because all the white spaces in maps had been filled out and there was nothing left to discover. Discovering something entirely new is also one major reason why audiences keep tuning into shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures. Bader et al. Found that audiences are fascinated by the idea of being part of a major discovery. Additionally, Lauren Chestnut is of the opinion that ghost hunting shows and similar endeavors mirror wilderness expeditions from the classical age of discovery.
Indeed, there seems to be an imitation of sorts when paranormal investigators find themselves in unknown foreign places, mainly old and vacant buildings, without a floor plan, in the dark, trying to capture something they only have a vague idea of in the first place. These efforts are portrayed as brave, similar to the way explorers were seen and saw themselves as heroes vanishing into the remoteness of primeval regions such as the Arctic or Africa that coexisted with the progressive European and American world.
Here, the potential supernatural world serves as a sort of wilderness to be explored and discovered. And it's not only the discovery aspect that is reminiscent of expeditions. The paranormal investigators, as they call themselves, also share some characteristics. They are often white men, and as we mentioned before, exploration narratives of the past exclusively featured white men exploring the world, a world that was yet to be discovered. And within these narratives, these manly explorers could present themselves as tough and experienced adventurers.
The investigators in Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, Most Haunted, etc. do present themselves in the same way, which becomes even more interesting once we realize that the paranormal and spiritual field they are staging their exploration and discovery in was originated by women.
(1848) Sisters Maggie and Kate Fox investigate a supposed ghost haunting their family farmhouse. They are able to intelligently communicate with the ghost via rapping and knocking sounds. Only 1 year later, they are giving demonstrations and sit for seances. The spiritualist movement is born. According to Merriam-Webster, one possible definition of spiritualism is that it is the belief that the spirits of the deceased can communicate with the living, mostly via a medium.
This Victorian theater of spirits was produced through trance performances and seances, often conducted by women.
Even now, we see mainly women portraying mediums in pop culture. One explanation for that could be that this kind of communication with ghosts demands more emotion and intuition. I mean, these ghosts literally use these women as mouthpieces. They speak through them. They have to be let in.
McGarry notes that, unlike other religions, spiritualism asked only that one become an investigator, attend a séance under test conditions, analyze evidence, and weigh whether or not to believe.
But where personal belief and emotion is valued above definite proof, science, and rationality, ghost hunters of the 21st century make their entrance. The question remaining, however, is how Ghost Adventures and shows like it were able to impose masculinity on an originally female domain. Firstly, we can observe the performance of hypermasculinity, as Renner states.
Men have transformed mediumship and spiritualism into a hypermasculine arena through a variety of behaviors, proclaiming and proving physical toughness, treating fear as girlish, physically sacrificing themselves soldier-like for the greater good, declaring a desire to seek out truth and justice regardless of danger, substantiating emotion and intuition with evidence, heftily pronouncing their heterosexuality, expressing a need for extreme experiences away from the state norms of everyday life.
What does it look like?
Aaron, do you got that?
Oh, dude.
Do you have that on your camera? Let me see it.
Yeah, see.
I want to make sure we got that.
It's good. It's good. I don't want to. No, I'm not.
Want to get out of here?
Yeah.
Here, this area. Get out of this. Do this.
Go sit out here. Don't want to do this.
Here, follow him. Follow him. You all right? Watch your head.
No, that pisses me. Who the did that? Huh? Did someone just scratch me?
This is why what we do is dangerous. We have masks, right?
You lock the doors too, and I'm kicking them as hard as I can. They won't open.
We're not going anywhere.
Give me the camera. Look out the window. It's still
It's
daylight.
still light out. We just got locked in 10 minutes ago. This is what I heard.
That's exactly it, but it sounded like chains.
What? I just saw a figure standing in my face, dude. Wait, Zach, where
You
were
were
you?
standing right there. Aaron was right there. I turn around like this. I swear on my mother, dude, a lady was standing here looking at me.
Are you insane? Do those words hurt your feelings? Oh my God.
Dave.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And I'll put you in.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Immediately, I was like, yes, yes, yes. I need to do this. I like doing stuff like that. How many chances will I get to do something like that?
In this performance aspect, we see a direct link to the past, where exploration served to demonstrate masculinity and strength. We shouldn't forget that Shackleton's ship was literally called the Endurance.
According to Shabbat, the very title Ghost Hunters constructs the show as a militaristic pursuit of ghosts, with all of the aggression, strength, and bravery signified by the hunt.
This masculinity is also found in the way these investigators choose to communicate with ghosts. Whereas mediums in the past let ghosts in to speak through them, these paranormal investigators encourage ghosts to speak up, to speak to them, and they provoke them aggressively if they must. Thereby, they found their communication in anger rather than trust. Performative toughness and manliness are aided by the technology used in the paranormal investigation. The ghost hunters usually interview witnesses of paranormal sightings, but their testimonies are never really enough, and ghosts or creatures or whatever they happen to be looking for are only real when captured on camera.
Similarly, Lauren Chestnut, discussing a different paranormal travel show, concludes, Their technology will determine whether or not these creatures really exist.
Masculinity becomes linked to technology, even technophilia, given how important all these electronics seem to be to the investigation, lending an air of science to what could be considered a non-existent field.
Mediums of the past also made use of technology, such as spectral photography and automatic writing. However, these methods, opposed to the modern ones, rely more on belief than fact, or at least it appears so. Shabbat writes, "The Ghost Hunters team employs night vision cameras, surveillance cameras, electromagnetic field readers, electronic voice phenomena recorders, and thermal imaging cameras. They thereby perpetuate a logic of scientific advancement and technological superiority, a logic that is couched in the traditionally masculine domain of reason, rationality, and objectivity." In conclusion, the exploration process enabled male explorers to showcase their toughness, manliness, and masculinity, thereby creating a narrative around them as heroic adventurers. Because the supernatural world remains as a kind of last frontier of the present, modern adventurers, namely ghost hunters, and their audience seek to investigate paranormal sightings in hopes to be the first ones to discover something entirely new. Though they move in the originally female domain of spiritualism, the mostly white male ghost hunters employ methods such as the performance of hypermasculinity and technology as a stand-in for science and rationality, to use this domain to restage a kind of expedition with themselves cast as tough and manly explorers.